Welcome back to Amazon Authority. My name is Jayce Broda. I'm the managing director here at SellerInteractive. And today we are going to talk about not just PPC automation, but we're going to talk about some recent relevant changes that you are going to care about as an Amazon seller. Here we go. Welcome, Rick Wong. How are you, Rick?
Hey, good. How about you, Jayce?
I'm very good, very good. Guys, I want to introduce Rick Wong. Rick Wong is the founder of Sellermetrics, an Amazon PPC software tool. Having worked in some of the world's largest financial institutions here in Canada, he ventured into Amazon selling in 2017 and sold his Amazon business 4 years later. So he is one of us. He currently resides in Hong Kong with his wife and one-year-old daughter. And on days he is not working, you can find him playing golf with his friends and watching the newest show on Netflix. What's your favorite Netflix show so far, Rick?
I'm not sure if you've any of the viewers watched this. I've been watching The Naked Director.
The, the
Watch it,
naked,
Jayce?
the
It's called The
naked,
Naked Director.
the
So it's
naked
about,
director. No.
yeah, it's a Japanese show, and it takes you to like the 1980s Japan, where pornography is basically banned.
Wow.
And it talks about this porn director pioneer that first started producing pornography in Japan. So it's a very interesting story. Talks about the 80s Japan where during that time, everything is crazy with like the property bubble. So a lot of partying, So basically it's just like a really interesting story, with anything that is a movie, sex sells. So, with the
Yeah.
Naked Director, it's definitely a very interesting thing to watch.
And what's it called?
Naked Director.
Naked Director.
It's
I
called
haven't seen it.
Naked Director.
I don't even know if we have it on Canadian Netflix. You guys have.
Oh, really? You could check it out.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't. But I think you should. I don't see any reason why it's not.
I've been watching Manifest. Do you know that one? It's
No, I
a
haven't heard of that.
fascinating concept. Really briefly, we can get back on track, but it's about these group of people go on a plane, like a regular, 747 or 757 plane, and they have really rocky turbulence, like super rocky, like people are bouncing around inside the cabin, and they land 4 hours later, and they land with like police and NSA and FBI, everyone surrounding the plane. They won't let them get off, and they're like, what's going on? We just flew from Miami or Barbados or something like that. And they're like, no, you actually left 5 years ago. This is 5 years in the future.
Oh, wow.
And
It's
so
kind of like Lost. Have you watched Lost?
Yeah. There's some parallels there for sure, but it's just fascinating thing because all their lives changed. Like, just imagine if you disappeared for 5 years and you came back to your life, your spouse thought you were dead, probably married someone else, and that's what happens. Like, your spouse thinks you're dead, and they marry someone else, and then you come back and there's this another man in your house raising your kids, right?
Right.
It's like crazy stuff, but it's pretty good. It's really good.
Yeah, I'll look for it.
Yeah, now in this year pandemic, Netflix is like a
Oh yeah, they're killing it. Yeah. And it's funny thing, Netflix, they're known for their recommendation engines. Really good.
Yeah.
It just gets you to keep watching and watching.
Yeah, those recommendations.
And one thing's interesting is based on geography. So what you see in Canada in terms of recommendations is totally different here in Hong Kong.
Yeah. My trips to the States, when you log into the local Wi-Fi there, I see a whole bunch of shows that I didn't even know existed. Yeah, it's true. And I found a VPN that unlocks the geo locking. A lot don't work, but I found one that works. So I think it's VPN Express. It's a paid version, but
that one. Yep. They're actually here in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. All right. Enough about Netflix. Poor O'Neill, my editor here, is listening to a bunch of Netflix stuff. Okay. Let's talk about Sellermetrics. Sellermetrics is a PPC automation software. We already said that, but it can completely automate the Amazon PPC optimization workflow. Through that tool, advertisers can create ACoS goals based on strategy and rely on Sellermetrics optimization engine to execute tactically. So we always talk about ACoS here, and everyone wants a really low ACoS and all that stuff. We're going to dig into that. But let's hear about Rick a little bit. So Rick, how did you get started into e-commerce and especially PPC? How did that all happen for you?
I would say specific PPC, it all started with the Amazon business. So it takes me back 4 years ago. I took like a half-year sabbatical from work. As you mentioned, I worked for one of the major financial companies in Canada for around 8 years. If you don't know, the financial industry in Canada, basically there's four main banks. Basically, I did my tour in like three of the main banks. Mm-hmm. And I thought 8 years in, I thought it was time to explore. So I took a sabbatical, did the cliche Southeast Asia trip, met an Amazon seller while traveling. So he was actually running his Amazon business at the same time. So I think that chance encounter really opened my eyes. Mm-hmm. And when I got back from my trip, I kind of just fell in the rabbit hole of just consuming Amazon selling content. I think my first video that I saw was Brian Moran talking about, I'm not sure you heard and the viewers know about him, but he's basically an OG Amazon influencer. Mm-hmm. And he talked about making like $1 million. So that kind of just sucked me in, right? Mm-hmm. And then I just spent days just reading on that niche. And then eventually I decided to make the plunge and make my first order on Alibaba, where basically a lot of Amazon seller would start sourcing basically from Alibaba.com. So after a bit of success with my first order, that is when I decided to move to Hong Kong to kind of scale the business. Because in Hong Kong, basically, my factory is in Shenzhen, China, and basically that's just across the border from Hong Kong. Yep. And I decided to move to Hong Kong because I have relatives there. So it's been 4 years, and I've been in Hong Kong since then. Fast forward last year, I've actually sold my business, and the business was built to 25 SKUs in the consumer electronic space, have 5 employees, sold it to one of these aggregators for close to 7 figures.
Wonderful. Okay, good stuff. So what were some of the common pitfalls that well, first of all, why did you sell? Let's go back to the basics. Why sell?
Basically, I thought it was time for a new challenge. I think that's a key thing. I always thought that the Amazon business, I'm not saying Amazon is not a good business, because especially the fact that I'm also doing an Amazon derivative type of business in terms of Amazon PPC. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like I want to further challenge myself. Mm-hmm. And in terms of my personal interest, it's always been tech. So when I was working at the bank, I was actually a developer at some point. Mm-hmm. So being in that space, I always have the itch to kind of launch a software product. And I do feel me being as an Amazon seller, it does give me a unique perspective in terms of offering products that can really help the Amazon sellers.
Good stuff. That's great. So you sound like someone who really needs new challenges. Pretty typical entrepreneur. Yeah. You do something for a while, you get a little bored, got to go on and get that grind going again and something new. I get
correct. Yeah, and it kind of bite me in the ass sometimes, because I kind of have a lot of things going on. Sometimes it's probably better to just focus on something. I'm pretty sure all entrepreneurs such as yourself have that kind of tendency as well. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just have to fight that urge.
Yeah, every 4 to 5 years, you shift to something new and start over. I get it. Yeah, I get it. Good stuff. All right. So let's talk about the app and how it's going to affect a lot of our audience. So most of our clients, over 200 of them, are pretty experienced sellers. we call them sort of the middle class or mid-tier sellers. They're anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000, or sorry, $10,000 to $50,000 in monthly revenue. averaging 5 to 10 SKUs, that kind of thing. But we do have lots of beginners too, like people who are just total beginners. They were at the stages you were when you were on your East Asian trip, right?
Right.
They're in the exploration phase. So why use an automation tool? Why can't I just go into Seller Central, go into the back end and do my own organization of my PPC campaigns?
So that's a problem, right? So initially, when you first start, you only have like one or two products in which you could probably have enough time to run Amazon PP by yourself through the front end without any type of automation. That's basically what happened to me.
Mhm.
But if you expand your catalog to 5, 4 SKUs and maybe expand it to a different marketplace, the time it takes to really manage your PPC will grow exponentially, right? So this is where the sweet point comes when you want to, when an Amazon PPC tools would be very useful to you because there's a set of automated tasks to be done, and you need to spend a lot of your time on different things, such as hiring, potentially sourcing, inventory management. So all this takes a lot of your time, and you don't with Amazon PPC, you want to be able to manage more products, more marketplace without spending more and more time.
Mhm.
So this is really great for sellers that are looking to beginning to scale. So I think this is what Sellermetrics is really built for. It's really built for the sellers that are really looking to start to scale in other marketplaces and scale from five to for more than 5 SKUs
Mhm.
onwards.
Mhm. Okay, so explain for those who haven't been into Seller Central, what does it look like when I want to sell on .com, .ca, .uk, .mex? Do I have to go and have separate PPC campaigns for all those if I'm doing it manually?
Yeah. So basically, for every single marketplace, there's a different Seller Central screen, right?
Mhm.
So basically, if you want to do inventory management between all these marketplaces, you have to like toggle in between these dashboards. Although now they have something called remote fulfillment, where you could just do inventory management for one marketplace and it'll fulfill to other marketplace like US to Canada.
Mhm.
But all in all, you still need to basically if you want to sell in different marketplaces, you have to manage different dashboards.
Mhm.
So one thing that Seller Metrics does, I feel what we do well is that if you sell in multiple marketplaces, we have like a unified feature where we consolidate all data from different marketplaces
Mhm.
into one dashboard. So basically,
Mhm.
you can see all your data, right, from say UK, US marketplaces on the same screen. And you can optimize all your keywords, all your targets, all the different types of campaign, just using just one workflow instead of having to like toggle to 6 different marketplaces if you're actually selling into like US and also all the UK accounts.
Mhm.
So time is the key thing that we're trying to save, and obviously with our bid automation engine, trying to improve on the ROI, lower the ACoS.
Good stuff. Okay, so let's dig into ACoS. So this is a topic as an agency we hit a lot, right? So ACoS, for those who don't know, is just an acronym for what it costs for you to acquire a new customer. And e-commerce is not rocket science, right? Um,
Right.
it's but it's a game of constantly acquiring new customers, and it's becoming more and more expensive for us to do that. And so what happens is people become obsessed with keeping their ACoS low, right? They want to be profitable. No one is in the business of just breaking even, of having nightmares and sleepless nights and all the difficulties that we have in running an e-commerce business, and then only break even or lose money. So I understand people's aches and pains when they're crying out for low ACoS. However, there is a really important strategy. There's a lot of benefits to being able to break even for a while, even lose money for a while. So let's talk about ACoS. Why, like, how do you keep your ACoS low? Let's just start with that. How do you keep your ACoS low? Not just with this tool, but in general. What suggestions do you have with that?
So so it really depends on your overall strategy, your goal of your specific campaign, right? If you're, it has to be, it's kind of like a teeter-totter sometimes with Amazon PPC. If you really want to increase your scale, I mean, if you really want to scale your sales, the chances are your ACoS will jump, right? Because you do a lot of discovery campaigns. We're trying to like discover for new keywords, right? And to discover for new keywords, or if you want to create like more brand awareness campaign, that would drive up your ACoS. But if you want to just really keep your ACoS low, then the key thing I feel is number one, product research is very important. So if you go for a niche that is very competitive. So I have a client. So back in the day, I also managed PPC campaigns for certain brands as well. So they sell phone cases. And obviously with that particular niche, no matter what you do, the ACoS is going to be abnormally high because there's only so many variations of, iPhone 11 case keyword, for example, like that you can use, right? So because of that, no matter what, your ACoS is going to be high. To keep it low, what you can do is that you want to go for long tail keywords. I think this is like kind of a cliche suggestion, but it holds true. If you really want to keep your ACoS low, go for long tail keywords and go for specific variation that is related to your product. For example, you're selling, so going back to my iPhone example, if you're selling an iPhone 10 case, right? Then let's just say you're selling a red one. So you want to be going for specifically variation type keywords for your product. So that's very important in terms of driving down your ACoS. Another thing that helps driving down your ACoS is play with the new ad types that Amazon have, because a lot of the new ad types, they're not that competitive yet in terms of people bidding for their ad inventory. For example, I remember when I first started using sponsored brand videos, even like I made like a very cheap video to advertise, the ACoS was amazing. The ACoS was like under 15% with lots of sales. So definitely keep an eye on Amazon PPC to see if they have released any new features or new ad types, and
why is
definitely
that?
experiment.
Why is that, Rick? Why was that cheap and effective?
Well, it's cheap because it's new, right? And basically, for any type, the cost, the CPC for anything in Amazon advertising or just paid advertising in general is a function of supply and demand, right? When you have something new on Amazon, for example, when they launched sponsored display not too long, like maybe like last year, there isn't too many people bidding on those inventory, those particular areas on the product listing page. So you could actually have placements in those, your ad placed in those placement of the product page very, very cheaply before everybody like jumps in and start bidding on that placement. And once you are on that placement, I wouldn't say you are super sticky, but it would take a competitor overbid you to take over your placement. So if you have the first mover advantage in that placement for like a new ad type, then you just do have like a first mover advantage. And by being a first mover, then obviously your CPC would be much lower than somebody that is trying to overtake you and outbid you for that placement.
CPC, cost per click, right? Yeah. Okay. So I just want
to cost per click. Yeah, CPC would be a cost per click.
Yeah, I just want to summarize here again for the the audience members who are completely new. So there are different ad placements, we call them like ad inventory on Amazon, right? So, and they keep, they keep regularly opening up new ad spots, new
Yeah.
ad opportunities. And then at first they may restrict them that they're only for people with a certain amount of budget, and then eventually they open it up. There's sponsored brand ads, sponsored ads. There's a whole bunch of different, there's several now, when there used to be maybe like two several years ago, and they keep adding to it. So like Rick had said, supply and demand, right? So if there are far few people using that advertory, bidding on it is much lower. It's much easier, and your cost is going to be much lower. And because it's new, there's less ad fatigue for that particular buyer for that particular ad inventory. So, or sorry, for that particular ad, and you're much more likely to get a sale. So, being able to experiment with those first and get a little out of your comfort zone is a big advantage. First mover advantage, as Rick said, is stellar idea. You really got to jump on it and act quickly.
And I think now, as of July 2021, the new product type would be sponsored brand video product attribution targeting. So basically, if you look at the product pages on Amazon, you are starting to see sponsored videos on the actual product page right now.
Yep.
So I definitely, so I've been like running those ads, and the results has been really good. So definitely jump on that. And with the sponsored brand videos, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's very expensive to make, a video." No, it's not.
Mhm.
Like, just have a collage of your photos and do kind of have somebody on Fiverr do like a GIF on it,
Mhm.
and just run those ads, right? I mean, if it does well, then you could maybe spend some money
Mhm.
and create like a much better video advertising on your product.
Mhm.
But to start, you know, just create a video to advertise,
Mhm.
right?
For sure.
Just for testing.
Exactly. Get started. That empirical data is going to be more valuable than any advice you get on a podcast. So start now. That's great. Great advice. Thank you, Rick. Okay. Let's go
Take
back
action.
to, sorry, pardon me.
Take action.
Yes. So, Rick, what is day parting, and is it something we should care about?
Um, it's very controversial because some people say so. Basically, day parting is to turn on and turn off ads based on certain date and time. So, for example, let's just say empirically, your product is sold to maybe to Generation Z, right? 20-year-olds, stuff like that. I'm not making this, I'm not saying everyone, but let's just say General Z, normally they're known for night owls. So you probably want to run ads late into the hours for them. On the other hand, let's just say your product is targeting the older generation. So maybe you want to run ads in earlier time and shut them off like later at night.
Mhm.
So basically, you want to be aggressively running ads during times that are optimal. So that is like the idea.
Mhm.
And with different paid advertising such as Amazon, I mean Google AdWords, they have like a very comprehensive day parting function, and the data you get in terms of your attribution to certain conversions, you could get it within a very reasonable, like close time proximity of like conversion. So that's why day parting works really well for, say, um, Google. The reason why it's a bit of a controversy in Amazon advertising is that we don't really have the actual exact time data for the attribution of the sale.
Mhm.
So a lot of people say, people use the business report as an idea of, when products normally, get their sales. But even then, you know, it's not as accurate as, say, Google AdWords, right? And also, with Amazon advertising, you don't really know exactly the time of when you actually made the sale from your ad spend. So that's another reason why people think, you know what, Dayparting doesn't really quite make sense with Amazon advertising. Having said that, there is a huge subset of sellers that lives by this like idea.
Mhm.
And when I was building this product, I talked to a lot of sellers, and a lot of them want this function
Mhm.
in their Amazon PPC software. So some people say that it works really well and they have data to back it up.
Mhm.
Some people say it doesn't work at all and they have data to back it up as well.
Mhm.
But it's really hard because like all sellers are selling different products, and there's also different ways to interpret the data as well, right? So are you like when you interpret data, are you like interpreting like all of the same type of products?
Mhm.
Are you interpreting the data only based on, say, a few months? It could be a seasonal kind of thing, right? Or are you just like looking at data as far back as a year, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so for me personally, I feel it really depends on the product, and if you. But my personal suggestions, if your campaign is running well, especially your ACoS is within acceptable levels, you
Mhm.
should always keep the ads running, right? Because it's just like if your ads, your campaign is running well, why not just keep it like up and running,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you're just missing out on a lot of potential sales that way.
Mhm. So, okay, let's go. Thank you. That's a great explanation. So we'll just cover ACoS one more time, and then I promise we'll move on.
Yeah.
How do I determine what is a reasonable or cost-effective ACoS?
So again, for more advanced sellers, um, I feel it really depends on your particular strategy. For more advanced sellers, they might have a strategy where I just want to rank specifically for this keyword, right?
Mhm.
And I guess we can touch on that, as a follow up. But some campaigns, basically, sellers would have bid heavily on that particular keyword and try to rank high and try to get that top organic ranking.
Mhm.
So indirectly, they would boost their sales even though their ACoS is high, right?
Mhm.
So they would do that within a certain tolerance level. And to them, for those campaigns, a high ACoS to other sellers might not be a high ACoS to them because they know that eventually they might make those sales organically if their PPC is able to boost that keyword organically, right? As a rule of thumb, an acceptable ACoS is basically the profit margins of your product,
Mhm.
right? So basically, if your profit margins like X cost, is like 30%, then your ACoS, what they call is the break-even ACoS, right? Then your ACoS should be 30%. Any anything over 30%, right, which is also your profit margin, would be a campaign where you actually lose money,
Mhm.
right? The other way around, if your campaign is like less than your target ACoS, then you actually make money from that campaign, right? But with Amazon PPC nowadays, there's is this with Amazon PPC, it can directly and indirectly affect your organic conversion rate. So at the end of the day, do you really want to lower your ACoS to a point where it really affects your organic sales? Probably not,
Mhm.
right? But you want to get to that certain ACoS where you make the most profit in a nominal basis, right?
Mhm.
So let's just say if your ACoS is high, is like, let's just say your break even ACoS is 30%, right? And a low ACoS, like 20%, can only make you say $300 in profit. But a higher ACoS, or 40%, can make you say $600 in profit. So you have to be careful in terms of just looking in your campaigns just in terms of ACoS.
Mhm.
There's other influence as well. So with again, with the Amazon PPC, how it affects the organic conversion rate is that I mentioned that it can increase your rank, and that can directly affect your sales slash rankings, and indirectly. So with Amazon, there's always this flywheel effect that you hear of, and it's really true. Same with Amazon PPC as well. The more sales you make with PPC, right, then the higher you could potentially rank, because the more sales you make, the more reviews that you get, right? And the more reviews that you get, the higher your conversion rate. So the cycle keeps repeat. So it's very important that you look at your ACoS in terms of like the direct and also the indirect influence of Amazon PPC.
That's a great point. So most people who say, I want a low ACoS, that's all I care about, are very concerned about the direct cost, not the indirect cost or indirect benefit. So one thing, Kevin, one of our partnerships or head of partnerships here says, look, do you want to break even or lose a little bit of money to acquire a new customer that maybe, the lifetime value of that customer is X number of dollars? Or do you want to lose that customer because you were so wanted a low ACoS to your competitor? Right? So thinking about the lifetime value of that new customer is really the magic number, not I want a 20% ACoS, right? It's a very short-term thinking.
Yeah, correct. Because in Amazon, on top of the positive feedback, if you're too conservative, there is like the negative feedback loop as well, where if you spend too much, your competitor is like really aggressive. Basically, they'll take away your key ranking in certain keywords, right? If you are not careful in terms of monitoring your competitors, whether you're still ranking, in the first page of certain main keywords, once you fall off the first page, like your sales would just tank. Yeah. I think I read like a statistic that 50% of the sales happens within the first 6 results or something like that. So it's a very top heavy thing with Amazon. So it's very hard to perpetually stay in that middle ground. It's a winner takes all effect. So be cognizant of that before you kind of decide to, okay, I really want to bring my ACoS down, like say from 40% to say 20%, right? Because it could like tank your sales all of a sudden.
Yeah. Those are really good insights, Rick. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So probably the number one question we get with regards to PPC for someone who's starting out is, what should my PPC budget be? So I know that's a very hard question, not knowing the product category, what their strategy is, how many ASINs they have, what their budget is, but how do I determine as a new seller, how do I calculate what my PPC budget should be? How should I start that?
Okay, I actually wrote an article about that. Maybe I'll share it with your audience later. The scientific, so from my perspective, the most scientific way to do it is basically first. So it's a very hard question to ask. Some people would just say, at first of all, I feel like new seller would just use a budget that they're comfortable with. It's just a random nominal amount on top of it. There's no like science. There's no reason behind it other than the fact they're comfortable. If that's the case, use that, right? At the end of the day, you don't want to spend to a point that you're not comfortable with when you first start. For example, my friend just started. He just put like $10 a day for his campaign for whatever reason, and this campaign always like runs on a budget in basically like in the middle of the day, right? But he's comfortable with spending that. So if that is the case, go ahead, use that budget, whatever's on top of your head, right? Nothing against that. And then it's better to advertise than not advertise. So spend that X amount of budget that you're comfortable with. Test your ads, right? The very scientific way to figure out your budget is first come up with the number of keywords that you want to bid for. I normally recommend you want to bid for less than 50, but when you're first selling a product, maybe there's like maybe there's 10 keywords that you really want to bid for, 10 keywords that you really think is relevant to your product. And then what you will do is that you're gonna put all these keywords in your campaign manager and see what the suggested bid is, right? From the suggested bid, you could reference how many clicks that would take to approximately win the bid auction. So you kind of use that to extrapolate your budget. So I would say, I don't know, 10 keywords. Each is like maybe suggested bid is $1, for example, right? So I would probably put around. So let's just say you want 3 clicks for the keyword. So basically, it'll be like 10 times 3. So it would be like $30. I think 3 clicks for a keyword each day would give you enough data for you to decide whether that keyword is worthwhile. Like let's just say you run that particular campaign for 7 days. So 3 clicks a day times 7, that gives you like 21 clicks for that keyword in a given week. That should give you a data to see whether that particular keyword is relevant to your campaign. And from there on, you can scale it out, right? And let's just say you see perpetually that your campaign budget runs out very quickly on a given day. So, and your campaign is doing really, really well. That is when you want to increase the budget. So do the testing, right? When you're a new seller, incrementally increase your bid. Let me say that again. When you're a new seller, what you want to do is create a campaign and then incrementally test your budget to the limit where you are constantly out of budget, right? And then you just scale it up from there, right? So that would prevent you from spending ads from the ad spend that you don't have to spend.
Very good, very good. So this is assuming that your campaign is profitable, it's selling, your ACoS is where you want it to be, and then you just gradually grow it from there. But what implied in what you're saying, Rick, is that you adding money to a bad campaign does not make it a better campaign.
Exactly. No, it does not. It just makes a bad campaign even worse.
Yeah, it's just a way
just like put like fuel to the fire, basically.
Yeah, flush that cash down the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like the thing that you want to do, especially when you're a new seller, is go with, first of all, go with whatever you're comfortable with, and then the more scientific method is like based on the suggested bid, based on the amount of keywords you want to give each keyword a chance. So maybe you're going for 3 clicks a day for each keywords, and then extrapolate the campaign budget from there. And then if it's doing well, and it's always running on a budget, then you could start incrementally increase it.
Good stuff. All right. Awesome. So let's go back to Sellermetrics a little bit. You touched on it a bit. I'd just like you to dig in a bit more. How is Sellermetrics different from other PPC automation tools out there?
Okay, so there are 2 features that makes us stand out a bit from the crowd. So I mentioned that we have our whole architecture, our whole design is that where we unified all your accounts, right? So we centralize all your metrics in multiple marketplaces. So that means that you can have all your campaign and keyword level metrics across all your accounts to be shown on one screen. So you could make all the bid changes under your Amazon login accounts at one go, right? And this particular touch on a pain point that I had as a seller is that when I want to manage Amazon advertising accounts across a lot of different marketplaces. So although we did sell like well over 7 figures, right? Like it's not like I have like a lot of resources, right? And so what I would need to do is basically manage in-house all my advertising accounts, right? So that's why for me personally, I feel like I have good experience on the Amazon PPC because I manage my own accounts.
Yep.
Right? So one of the like a key pain point is that I have to manage all these accounts, and every time I spend time on Amazon PPC, it seems like if I were to optimize for my UK, optimize for my US, my efforts is like duplicated every single time. And all the tools out there, there isn't really one that, from what I've experienced, that could consolidate all your marketplace data in one place, right? And all of them, I have to like toggle back in and out of my different accounts. So every time I scale my advertising to different marketplaces, I would have to spend more time. So with Sellermetrics, we solved the pain point of having to manage multiple PPC accounts. So you could scale your marketplaces without scaling your time in the same proportion.
Yeah. So I want to just point out, Rick, how valuable it is to our audience. So I've used this example before. We had a Canadian seller who was selling in the US. A lot of money and time she spent trying to optimize that listing, improve her EPCA plus content, improve her conversion rate, influencer network, and all of that stuff can work and it can be valuable. But she took that same listing with almost no editing whatsoever, launched on .uk, and it took off, right? Launching on other platforms, on other markets is something. There's really no excuse for people not doing it at this point. The tools are there. If you can launch on .com, that's the most competitive, that's the most grown-up big kids market, right? Everywhere else is not nearly as developed. The UK is probably second, but you want to launch on those markets because they're much less competitive. If you think there's a reasonable demand on that platform for your product category, go to it. It's a relatively, I'm not saying it's easy, it's a relatively low-hanging fruit, but the human tendency is they want to tweak the .com into success, and that can work, but it's definitely more expensive and time consuming.
It's funny that you said that, Jayce, because when a lot of new sellers here in Hong Kong, otherwise ask me what's their one piece of advice, is don't be just consider like the non.com marketplaces, right? It's less competitive. You could get profitable faster.
Yep.
Your risk is a bit lower because even though you do really well on .com, basically you have to spend more on inventory, and basically, when you make your first big order, the risk goes up into your business, right?
Yep.
And it just gives you that training wheels to be comfortable to kind of, like as you said, like when you get to the .com, you get to the big leagues, right? So in every single, for example, professional sports, right? People normally go for minor leagues, then you go to big leagues. So as you said, like a lot of like Amazon sellers, they just want to immediately go for the shiniest thing, right? Like just go for .com immediately. So it doesn't, I think it's a good idea to perfect your process, learn the ropes on the other marketplace first, then scale into Amazon.com. Although I don't see a lot of people actually do that, but if I were to start again as a seller, especially in this environment with the .com being so competitive, this is the route that I would probably go.
That's great. Great advice. Thank you, Rick. That's great. We've covered a lot here. We're coming on an hour here. So you talked about that. That's one feature that Sellermetrics has that other doesn't. What's the second one?
The second one is that my Sellermetrics allows you to change, optimize your ads automatically and manually. A lot of the PPC solutions out there falls into either too automatically or too manual, right? So some of the software out there. Basically, they'll give you suggestions, and it's up to you to push the new bid in.
Mhm.
Some are too automatic because you just put the ACoS and that's it, right? You don't really see too much. It's more or less a black box.
Mhm.
And at the same time, like not all campaigns are apples to apples. So some campaigns are good candidate for you to take personal care, right? To manually optimize.
Mhm.
At the same time, some campaigns are really good candidate for you to automate, right? Especially those that are really mature, and optimizing them is basically maintenance work, right? So what Sellermetric does is that it allows you to do both. You can change your bid manually, right? For example, you have a particular campaign that is uh, for launching, for example. You want to look at that campaign manually. You want to change the bid manually. You want to ensure that you're always on top of a certain keyword. So you can do that. On the other hand, if you have some campaigns that you want to run manually, as in, okay, this campaign, you have a large number of keywords and you know exactly what you need to do for this campaign to optimize. Basically, you know your target ACoS. You've been running this ads for, this campaign for more than four months. This would be a very good candidate for you to automate. So with our level of control that you could potentially have is another thing that I feel that can set us apart.
Mhm. Good stuff. That's great. Awesome. I just wanted to go back to the the other marketplaces just to hit this
Right.
home a little harder. Um, my mother, who is almost 70 years old, I remember in the 80s when the microwave came out, she was like, "Why do you need a microwave? The stove works just fine. You gotta learn how to cook and blah blah blah." Well, like 6 months later, she had a microwave, and now I don't remember, like she doesn't use a stove anymore.
Yeah.
um, and I bought her an iPad, and she loves the iPad, but she wanted an iPad case. And so I gave her an Amazon gift card, and it nearly brought her to tears because she didn't know how to redeem it and she didn't know how to search for it on Amazon. And typical boomer kind of thing with new technology. Well, since this pandemic, my mother can't stay off Amazon, right? So, and in Canada, Amazon.ca is already, it's not like something you have to gamble on. It's already the dominant e-commerce platform. Totally won. War's over. They kicked everyone's ass.
Yes.
However, we're talking about a massive late majority that is just recently, gotten on Amazon and is now comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Our family, I mean, we're getting Amazon boxes almost every day. Not because I'm like a shopaholic or anything. It's just we buy all our household stuff here. We don't go to the grocery store for household stuff, garbage bags, cleaning supplies, dog treats. They're all just automated on Amazon and they come when they come. School supplies, all that kind of stuff. So stuff that you would normally go to a department store, you now go to Amazon and it's often
Right.
automated.
Exactly.
Now I'm an early adopter, but my mother's like late majority. And so marketplaces like .ca, which is already big, but not nearly as cutthroat as .com, are going to be cutthroat soon. So one of the probably the number one issue that comes up when we speak to sellers when they speak about their competition. Well, they win because they launched 7 years ago on Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Really? Do you notice the irony
Sure.
there? Launch on .ca, .uk,
Yeah.
Australia, like do it now. Don't wait 18 months when someone else has already clawed their way into that, real estate and own that space. First mover
Yeah.
advantage you talked about.
Especially if you could see like Amazon as like a dominant player in a certain country.
Yeah.
For example, like Canada, as you mentioned, I hear from what I remember, Canada is like the penetration rate. Maybe it's different after COVID, but the penetration rate for e-commerce is like less than it's like less than 20%, right?
Yeah.
And within that 20%, Amazon is like 50% of that or something like that, or even a bit less. I forgot the exact math. So there is still like, especially like off of .com, there's still like a lot of growth left.
That's right.
Right. So I feel like if you really want to jump in these like non.com marketplaces, I feel like this time, like right now, is probably the sweet spot.
Yeah. And a good indicator of that, because you don't want to just go on something someone on a podcast said, Amazon, there's lots of news about when Amazon launches new FBA warehouses and their locations, right? Because cities are fighting for these warehouses. They want it because it's thousands in jobs, increases real estate in the area, blah, blah, blah. If you know that, Amazon is scaling in that region, right? So
Exactly.
that's a really strong indicator that you want to enter that market sooner rather than later. Do not wait, right? You want to be the dominant player. We spoke to one guy who started dog chews. It's like the rawhide dog things on Amazon. He's the biggest player. I'm telling you, he's earning close to, it's sick, like close to $4 million a month selling these damn things. And it's not because he's a particular genius, and it's certainly not because the product is exceptional. The product can be bought almost anywhere, but he is a brand that established himself on Amazon like 8 years ago, and he's just killing it. I mean, he's well off of Amazon now. He's not dependent on Amazon anymore. He's in every possible sales channel. And of course, he was good and he executed and he worked hard, brilliant entrepreneur. But the primary thing is that he launched at the right time. So launch now and launch on other platforms that are like Rick said, are growing. They have so much more room for growth. So seize that opportunity. If you take any advice, just take that and start now and continue to work at it. Good stuff.
Definitely.
Rick, we covered a lot, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
That was really
that's
good.
really good. Like, yeah, we talked a lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
we covered
that was
like
really
basically
good.
all the points in notes. Yeah.
And Rick, we can do this again, right? This doesn't have to be like a one-off thing. You're definitely a good interviewer and lots of helpful stuff. If we can make the technical stuff easy to understand for a noob, that's a really powerful thing. Okay, so can we give you a sign off, Rick? Can you just remind people who you are and how they can reach out to you with Sellermetrics, or if they have any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, so Sellermetrics, we're an Amazon PPC tool specifically built for sellers, but I'm not sure if there's any self-publishing offers out there, but our software could support them as well.
Oh, good.
And our solutions is cost-effective, allows you to scale to different marketplaces seamlessly. Feel free to check us out at sellermetrics.app. So that's .app, not .com. But I will send Jayce my contact info. So maybe you could, share it in the show notes. So feel free to reach out to me to social media or email.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And what is your, are you on Instagram or Twitter?
I'm on Twitter.
Great. And what is your Twitter handle, Rick?
It's Rick WN Wong.
Excellent.
So it's RickWNWONG.
And if you want more information, you go to sellermetrics.app, not .com. Excellent. Rick, thanks so much for your time. That was a fantastic podcast. We covered lots of really good stuff. Super helpful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Jayce. I'll be happy to do this again.
Yeah, good stuff. All right.